Women in the Bible. Today, I want to give you a look at Hagar's life. She was the Egyptian slave of Abraham and Sarah. Moreover, today her story can speak in your life. The story of Hagar is told in Genesis chapters 16, 21, and 25 and in Galatians chapter 4 verses 21 to 25. Just as Isaac was the true heir and Hagar and Ishmael were cast out, so the law, being a limited phase in God's plan of salvation, was replaced at the proper time by the covenant of faith established permanently and eternally in Christ. Galatians chapter 4 verses 21 to 25. Who was Hagar? Hagar was an Egyptian slave from the tribe of Abraham. It was a gift to Abraham and Sarai when they traveled there on one of their nomadic desert journeys. They took Hagar from one of the pharaohs they met. Genesis chapter 12 verse 16, he dealt well with Abram for her sake. He had sheep, cattle, male donkeys, male servants, female donkeys and camels. The first time the Bible mentions Hagar is in Genesis chapter 16 verse 1. Sarai, Abraham's wife, bore him no children at all. She had an Egyptian handmaid named Hagar. Moreover, Sarai said unto Abram, Behold now, the Lord hath restrained me from bearing. I pray thee, go in unto my slave. Please enter my handmaid, maybe I will have children from her. Abraham listened to Sarai. Then Sarai, Abram's wife, took Hagar the Egyptian, her handmaid, and gave her to her husband, Abram, to be his wife after Abram had lived 10 years in the land of Canaan. Genesis chapter 16 verses 2, 3. Hagar had no choice. Abram went to Hagar, and she conceived. When she saw that she was pregnant, Hagar looked contemptuously at her mistress, Sarai. Then Sarai told Abram what had happened, and he said, Your slave is under your authority. Treat her as you think is right. So Sarai retaliated by treating Hagar so harshly that Hagar ran into the desert. Then Sarai began to humiliate her and she ran away from her. Genesis chapter 16 verses 1 to 6. He said, Hagar, Sarai's servant, where did you come from? Where are you going? She said, I am fleeing from the face of my mistress Sarai. Yahweh's angel said to her, Return to your mistress, and submit yourself under her hands. When the angel ordered Hagar to return, she did not return defenseless. She was equipped with God's promise, a promise she will receive after she returns and submits to her mistress. I will increase your descendants so much that there will be too many to count. The angel of the Lord makes a promise to her, and Hagar had to remain faithful until the Lord fulfilled his promise, years later. Hagar is not fully aware of how she will navigate her relationship with Sarai. Despite this, Hagar focuses on the promise and returns to her mistress, Sarai. Hagar bore a son to Abraham and named him Ishmael, as the Lord had told him, Genesis chapter 16 verse 15. The story of Hagar is repeated 14 years later, when Isaac was born to Abraham and Sarah, Genesis chapter 21. Shortly after Isaac was weaned, Sarah saw Ishmael mocking him and brought the problem to Abraham. Sarah said to Abram, Cast out this bondwoman and her son, for the son of this bondwoman shall not inherit with my son Isaac. Genesis chapter 21 verse 10. This greatly troubled Abraham, because he was considering his son. But God said to Abraham, Do not be troubled because of your boy and your slave. Listen to Sarah in everything she tells you, because through Isaac your seed will receive its name. As for the son of your slave, I will make him a nation, because he is your descendant. And Abraham rose up early in the morning, and took bread and a bottle of water, and gave it to Hagar, putting it on her shoulder. He also gave her the child and drove her away. Hagar left and wandered in the wilderness of Beersheba. Eventually the water in the bellows ran out and Hagar lost her strength and could no longer help him, so she had to put him down under the nearest bush. Genesis chapter 21 verses 14 to 16. Hagar, the enslaved woman, disregarded, cast out, wronged, remains a person whom God takes care of personally. God intervened. He twice protected her from Sarah's hatred by sending an angel. So Hagar escaped and lived like a free woman. Genesis chapter 21 verses 1 to 21. Once again, God intervenes. God heard the boy crying, and the angel of God called Hagar out of heaven and said to her, What is the matter, Hagar? Do not be afraid. God heard the boy crying as he lay there. "Pick up the boy and take him by the hand, for I will make him a great nation." Then God opened her eyes and saw a well of water. She went, filled the bellows with water, and gave the boy a drink. God was with the boy, and he grew up and lived in the wilderness and became an archer. Genesis chapter 21 verses 17 to 20. God reaffirms his promise to Hagar that Ishmael will be the father of a great nation. He remains faithful to them, and Hagar even arranges for Ishmael to marry a woman from the land of Egypt. God remains so faithful to Hagar throughout her life. Later, God showed mercy to Hagar through her son Ishmael, promising that her son would never be a slave like her. It teaches us that God is merciful and compassionate. He looks beyond our failures, and only by his grace, we can be saved. What can we learn from Hagar? Her story is full of life lessons, both practical and spiritual. The first life lesson in Hagar's story has to do with humility. When Hagar realized she was pregnant, she became proud of her ideas about how God shows favor. God's favor does not look the same for everyone. It does not even reach all of us at the same time. What can we learn from Hagar? From Hagar we can learn spiritual lessons. God cares for all people regardless of their rank. When Hagar ran away from home because of Sarah's brutality, the angel of the Lord appeared to her. Hagar was wrong here, however, God did not let her perish. She had been overwhelmed by her pride, but God showed her the way back. God loved her even if her attitude was wrong. Moreover, he does today. Do not let your heart condemn you, because God is greater than your heart. Hagar meets the Lord while she is on the move. At that moment, she runs away from her fears, her pain, her troubles, and she just wants to be free. However, the deepest thing happens to Hagar. The angel commands her to turn and submit. Hagar must obey Sarah, the woman who abused her, the person she runs away from. Instead of running away from difficult situations, we can deal with these situations knowing that the Lord will guide and protect us. When we face problems, we receive blessings. Through perseverance while in the oven, we can receive the greatest gifts the Lord has in store for us at the end. Paul used the story of Hagar and Ishmael, Sarah, and Isaac as an allegory for these two covenants. However, the son by the servant was born according to the flesh, but the son by the free woman was born through promise. One is from Mount Sinai, bearing children to bondage, which is Hagar. For this, Hagar is Mount Sinai in Arabia, and answers to the Jerusalem that exists now, for she is in bondage with her children. Nevertheless, the Jerusalem that is above is free, which is the mother of us all. As Isaac was the son promised by faith, and Sarah, it symbolizes the covenant promise and grace. Isaac was the true heir, but Hagar and Ishmael were expelled. Likewise, the law, being a limited phase in God's plan of salvation, was replaced at the proper time by the covenant of faith, permanently and eternally established in Christ. Galatians chapter 4 verse 21-5-1. Morale 1. Remember God's promises. On the other hand, we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are the called according to his purpose. Romans chapter 8 verse 28z. 2. Rely on God's plan. Many ways may seem good to man, but in the end they are seen as leading to death. Proverbs chapter 14 verse 12. 3. Recognize God's providence. And let my God take care of all your needs according to his riches in glory in Jesus Christ. Philippians chapter 4 verse 19. Stay strong and do not bow down again under the yoke of bondage. Galatians chapter 5